What's up, y'all? Welcome to Political Fight Club. I have a very special guest. Ian Berg is back with me today. Finally got our car issues kind of figured out, so we're going to be talking about a whole bunch of stuff. He wanted to come over today, especially since the infrastructure bill passed and the squad did not hold the line. He has some some inflammatory remarks about the squad that we're going to talk about. So I'm just going to kind of riff here. I've got 3 or 4 things we're going to hit over the next hour or so, guys. So tune in, enjoy yourselves. Ian, let's start off with, what do you think about the squad's performance and how they held the line, or in this case didn't, on the infrastructure bill? What do you think?
Well, first I want to say I'm not actually this much taller than you.
Yeah, I'm sitting
It's just the chairs. So, yeah, I'm not that big. But, so, if you go back, the last video we did together, or one of the last videos we did, we both did predictions about what we think was going to happen. It was pretty close about where we both ended, like where we thought. And so I said that one of 2 things was going to happen. Either A, they were just going to fold, and they weren't going to hold the line, or B, the Build Back Better plan was going to get probably to around like 1.2 trillion, and you know, that was going to be like, oh, hey, we're victorious. Now I realize they folded, and it will probably get to 1.2 trillion because they have gotten rid of all of their leverage. There's no reason at all for Manchin or Sinema or any of the other supposed Democrats to even sign off on it. I wouldn't even be surprised if it didn't pass at all. They might even not. They might be unashamed, like unabashedly come out, but like, yeah, I'm not gonna go for it, because there's no reason for them to. And so, you know, I hate to say I told you so. I wanted to be hopeful, but I knew they weren't going to, because they never have and they never will. And it also bothered me too during that time when Bernie was having his meetings with Joe Manchin, and then they had the camera screws came out, and they're like stood next to each other, and they're like, yeah, and I was like, why are you being friendly to him?
No,
people,
and he is
because
friendly
of
to Joe
Manchin and Sinema, people are dying. They're dying from water pollution. They're getting sick from water pollution and coal ash. They are rationing their insulin and their medications. Like, people are dying, and you're sitting here, like, pretending to... Don't be friends with people that are responsible for the deaths of other people. And so, it's just like, I knew it was going to happen. I knew they weren't going to hold the line. I didn't know it was going to be this a bit... 6 of them out of 90.
Yep.
And that's why they're like, we sent a letter. A strongly worded letter. Like, oh, I didn't know the president's office was the fucking homeowners association. I didn't know that you could just send a letter and people would be like, oh, well, they're angry at us, so we should probably just, like, actually do our job. So I knew it wasn't going to be that many. I didn't know it was going to be that abysmal. And I saw Pramila Jayapal didn't vote no.
Right, she voted for it.
Like, if any of them, like, I thought AOC would vote yes, and Pramila Jayapal would vote no. And so, like, pretend, like, the 6 people, that, you know, they knew that it was going to pass. They knew that their no vote was nothing but theater. And the fact that they didn't hold firm just shows that, you know, there's no actual true progressives in Congress or in the Senate. And I believe that Bernie is a true progressive. I believe he believes what he's saying, but he's too cowardly. He's too nice. He's never going to actually fight like you need to fight, and so he's worthless. Right. And that's what I also wanted to bring up. I know I'm kind of rambling here, but I'm in a lot of Facebook groups with politics, and I'm in the Bernie-crats group. And there were so many people in that group saying, like, yay, like, be thankful for the crumbs. And so when I piped up and I said, no, that is a terrible way to view it. Like, you should not be thankful for the crumbs. You should be upset. You should be rallying. Like, you should be angry. And somebody piped up and was like, you're coming from a place of privilege. And I was like, no. If I was in a place of privilege, I wouldn't care if it was crumbs.
Right.
The reason that I'm fighting so hard, that I want other people to fight so hard about getting things implemented that actually help everyone, is because we cannot keep living off of crumbs. Like, if you own a business, or you own slaves, or you're a landlord and you have a shitty house, right? If the person keeps paying you rent and doesn't complain that the roof leaks, and that the toilet doesn't flush, and that the AC doesn't work, why are you going to put money to fix it? You know, if your slaves are okay with being slaves and they're like, well, we have a house and he doesn't whip us very much, then why would you ever stop? You know,
Right.
if we don't stand up and say, no, I'm not taking the bare minimum because you owe us more, that's not coming from a place of privilege. That's coming from a principled standpoint for being a human being. And it's just like, you think that with all the information that we have on the web, that people have access to, people like you and me that come out and we say these things, you think that we would get through to somebody. But it's like they just have this smoke screen where they're just like, hey, if Bernie signed off on it, it's good. If AOC signed off on it, it's good. Take the crumbs, they're good for you. And that is just the worst take that you can possibly have, because it just allows us to keep getting stepped on for years to come.
That's why I go after a lot of the people like Kyle Klinsky and Mike Figueredo so much, is because I don't think they quite realize how much they're enabling these people. And the more that they tell the people that are the constituents of the squad that getting crumbs is a good thing, then the less people are revolting against the squad for getting them nothing. So we set ourselves up in this vicious cycle where if they keep getting getting patted on the back for giving us nothing, then they never force anything more in Congress. So the best thing that you can do is to completely shred the squad at every turn, so that they know that their constituents are like not going to put up with something that amounts to crumbs. But the worst thing you can do is do with the vote, or what was it, the non-force the vote people. They were like, oh, be nice to the squad. Let them get an inside game, right? Let them get a committee seats, is what they said. As soon as you let them off the hook and say, oh, we're going to give you a pat on the back no matter what you do, then you end up with bills like this. So those people they're culpable. They're culpable when bills come out this bad. Yeah. Because had everybody on the left, including TYT and all those other channels, collectively gone after the squad hard for the last year, maybe they understand that, oh, we got to do something. Otherwise, these millions of views, these millions of subs over these 30 or 40 channels are all going to turn on us. But there's people carrying water for the squad, like the Kalinskis, Doles, Figueredos, and TYTs, that enable them to do things like they're doing right now, which is why I have to go after them. I have no choice.
All right. Well, that's actually what I want to bring up. So there are a lot of people that have seen, especially like Mike Figueredo, the Humanist Report, David Pakman.
I don't watch him anymore.
David Dole, a lot. Yeah. So I don't. I was telling you earlier, I don't unsub from anybody, particularly because I want to hear point of views that are different than mine, and so I stay sub. You know, I'm not a huge fan of the Humanist Report. I used to be, but I'm not so much anymore. I'm still actually a big fan of Kyle Klinsky. I don't think he's as radical as I'd like him to be. But in the last couple weeks, he came out, he said that all the progressives should vote no on the Build Back Better plan because it wasn't over $2 trillion. It didn't have any Medicare, anything in it whatsoever. And so he actually hasn't been rocking the boat as hard when it comes to the squad. Like, he hasn't gone after them and told them, but he straight up has said, like, he knows they're not going to stand their ground.
Yeah, that was recently, yep.
And so he hasn't been coming out and, fighting against, the theater as much as we'd like. But we talked before the show, and I'm just like, if you're Kyle Klinsky, and you spent all this time making Justice Democrats, trying to get all these progressives elected, and, you come out, you've been doing it for 10 years, and you think, like, Reformation is the way. You got Bernie, you got, one guy in there, you're going to get a whole bunch of people like him, they're going to stand their ground, and then all of a sudden you realize you're not as strong as the money, like your ideas and knowing that equality and giving the American people something they want, you realize that your whole worldview is shattered. It's going to take you time before you realize, to give up on that. And I think, like, he's still optimistic. He still wants to see the Democratic Party reformed because he knows going third party right now in America, especially with the polarization and the nonstop propaganda, it's just not something that's going to work. Mm-hmm. And so, on one hand, I agree with you. I think if more people came out to kind of, like, break that idea that people have in their heads, like, you have to vote blue or you have to vote red. If they realized that the squad wasn't always on their side, if they didn't have these pretend heroes, that people might actually say, you know what, screw it, my vote doesn't matter, I'm just going to vote per my principles. So on one hand, I agree with you. I think that they need to come out. They need to change their rhetoric. They need to, fight the good fight. But on the other hand, I understand why it's so hard for some people to lose, they want to stay optimistic. And when you are optimistic, you're kind of lying to yourself about how things are. And so I see some people are kind of coming around, but then also, like on the Humanist Report, he doesn't even mention the Squad. A lot of it's, culture war stuff, anti-vax stuff. I'm sorry, but those are non-issues to me.
Yeah. He's straight up culture war bullshit.
Oh yeah, I mean that's
that's all he does.
And
is demonize Trumpists for goofy anecdotal stuff.
Yeah, and that's just like David Pakman. It's
Yep.
a lot of like corporate dem stuff. And I'm sorry, but it's real hard for us to win the culture war because so many people on the conservative side just aren't educated. I've asked many people that are against critical race theory what critical race theory is. They haven't told me anything. They don't know. It's just the Dems are for it, and it says race in the name, and therefore they think it's all evil. And so a lot of it's anecdotal evidence and that kind of thing. It's like, look, you're never going to win voters. You're never going to win the game unless you show them what you are for, right? What you're really for. Strong unions, Medicare for all, ending the wars, forgiving student debt, free college, like stuff that's going to lift people up. And if you just run around and, try to defend all these social, issues, you're going to lose. Because nobody that's voting, unfortunately, is really diving into those issues. And so, we need to ignore the culture war, and we need to push what we are really for. Show that we're not all communists, that we're not all socialists, that we just want to give everybody a chance to live like a good, happy, healthy life where they can be independent, where they can have their rights respected. And then the media doesn't, they didn't even cover the strike in the mine where the government came out and said if you don't go back to work, you can get arrested.
Yeah,
no one covered that. And then they say we have to give women a right to abortions, but I'm also for a mask mandate. So it's like, are you for body autonomy or are you not for body autonomy?
A vaccine mandate. Mask mandate, that's not against autonomy because it's not injecting you with anything.
Right, yeah.
Vaccine mandate.
But either way, it's like the vaccine mandates, it's like, I'm okay with the vaccine mandates because if it's get a test or get vaccinated. But when it's just get vaccinated or lose your job, I'm not for that. I'm just not. And so ignore the culture war, but there's so many lefties that have just decided that's what they're going to focus on, and it's not helping the cause.
You can't win the culture war. You have to fight the class war, and then the culture war dissolves
Exactly.
afterwards. Or if you want to fight those things after we win the class war, feel free. But fighting the culture war now is just banging your head against a wall.
Oh yeah, because all the studies show that the class war stuff is almost unanimously agreed upon by both parties. Everybody, most people want a higher minimum wage. Most people want strong unions. Most people want campaign reform. Most people want to end the wars. Most people want to forgive college debt. All the stuff that you can win, focus on that because you're going to get voters. And it just seems like a lot of times they don't want to come out against the Dems because they've been so brainwashed into thinking the Dems are the good guys that they're putting all their eggs in the basket of the culture war, and that's just a fruitless endeavor.
And the culture war, let's be serious, it's a tool used by the elites as propaganda to divide.
Yeah.
The culture war is very much perpetuated by mainstream media to make sure that you guys understand that you're supposed to fear your neighbor for X, Y, and Z. Yeah. It's all about demonizing the other side, whether you're watching Fox and it's demonizing Democrats, MSNBC, CNN, and they're demonizing Republicans. The culture war is inherently a useful propaganda tool for dividing the populace.
Yeah.
And therefore they divide and conquer. Now,
they keep using
as far as Kyle Kalinske goes, part of the reason I want to break him and get him to come over and decide that Democratic reformation is actually less likely than running third party and winning or running third party and getting things done, because then if I can break him and prove that people can change their minds on this, then it proves to other people that are watching my show that you can convince certain people that are super entrenched in the Democratic Party to come over to the idea of third parties or revolution. So he's like my example. He's like my martyr or whatever, that I'm trying to break him so I can prove it can be done. And it's working because he actually is, as you pointed out, recently he said the squad is worse than useless, which is you would never hear him say that a month ago, trust me. So he's starting to realize how insane he looks for doubling and tripling down on trusting the squad. And since he's an objective enough person, and I don't think he's as on board for the culture war bullshit that David Dole and Figueiredo are, I think he's salvageable, but he's in an impasse right now. He's either going to stay on the Democratic Reformation train and we're going to drive him insane, and he's going to drive himself insane because he's going to realize what a goofball he looks like, or he comes over and realizes, I was wrong, I've been shitting on third parties this whole time, therefore enabling his own self-fulfilling prophecy to go back to democratic reformationism. If he would just turn over a new leaf and go, okay, well, I think third parties are now the place to go, even if it can't win right away, that would in and of itself help third parties because Kyle Kalinske has 1 million subs. So the more people that we can get that have these big platforms to agree, yeah, third parties the way to go, the more likely third parties will do well. So we're right there. I just have to break him a little bit more. And I'm like, right now, I'm like Bane with Batman. I'm like about to drop him on my knee.
The only way that I believe democratic reformation is possible is if we have just massive, widespread reform that I don't know how, but we'd have
a general strike is what you'd have to have,
and I don't mean just like you'd have to have everybody in the streets, because everybody that's in Congress and in the Senate would be voting against their own benefit.
Yeah.
But you'd have to make it to where they cannot make money off being in office.
Right, exactly. General strike, then get rid of Citizens United is the only way you do it.
And not just Citizens United. I want it to go further. I don't want them to be able to own stocks at all.
Yeah, right.
And they're like, well, it's in like a 401k.
Doesn't matter.
Or it's handled by somebody else. Don't care. No stocks whatsoever. I think it's like 80% of American population doesn't have stocks. You know,
yeah, right. And then
some
lately
crazy amount.
They showed that the top 10% owns 90% of stocks.
Yeah, and so no, because if you have a stock in Tesla, you're going to pass Tesla-biased bills, which they do.
Yep.
And so if you have stock in coal, you're going to pass oil and coal-biased laws. And so, no, you are not allowed to own any companies. You're not allowed to own any stocks. Like, I would be happy if they just got their money from the government and they couldn't make any money at all. Like, you can write a book.
Just your salary.
Like, you can't sell a book. You can't sell art like
Hunter
Biden's son. You can't own stocks. And then I don't know how you do it, because I wouldn't want to end somebody's entire, like, ability to make money. Say they only go to Congress for a few years and then they, have to find a job. But I'd also want to make it to where you can't go get a job at like a defense contractor making $3 million a year after you've been in office. Because then all that's going to happen is someone's going to promise you a job, you're going to pass bills for them, and so I don't know if they can only live off their... But either way, you have to make it to where only people that are selfless want to be in government.
Yeah.
And so if you don't pass that, there's no point in reformation. Because either A, you're going to get steamrolled by all your peers and big money, or you're going to get assassinated, or your, measly, like, 2 people that are actually principled aren't going to be able to change anything. And it's just, reformation, as much as I'd love to see it happen, it's not an attainable thing right now.
And remember, guys, in our first episode together on PFC, we talked about this exact thing. Are we more democratic reformationists, or are we more like burn it all down types? And we were kind of on the fence. We were like, let's give the squad time. I was more on the side of like, let's give the squad about 6 weeks. If they don't force the vote in 6 weeks, then they're not on our side, and I don't think we can, reform the Democratic Party. You seem to agree with that mostly as well. We've changed our minds. But these other people, they're so entrenched, and like you said, Kalinske spent a decade building up his channel, building up the Justice Democrats with the hope that would change the world, and it didn't work, and he's just rejecting reality because he's got so much of his reality right now is based off of and predicated upon that 10 years in politics. But he's coming around, I think, and I think he's either going to go insane or he will eventually come around, and if we can do it with him, then maybe we can do it with a couple of the other channels. That's one thing I wanted to ask you about. I think there are certain channels that are too far gone that I don't watch anymore. There's some on the fence that I kind of watch sometimes, and I'm hoping that they end up joining the right side in this fight. But then there's some channels that, as you know, I call them out in my power rankings all the time. I was hoping that you could give us a couple of channels that you watch regularly who you think are doing good content.
So, strangely enough, I do watch the Fred Hampton leftists that I really like. We talked about Unapologetic. We both really like his
awesome.
content. But mostly I actually watch channels that disagree with me. And I do that because I know where I sit in the world. I know my views. I will read the news stories. But content-wise, like commentary, I want people that disagree with me. I don't need to be reinforced in my echo chamber. So I watch a lot of PragerU, actually, and it makes me mad, and it makes me laugh because it's just so ridiculous.
Of course.
So I watch a lot of PragerU. I watch Kalinske, and Kalinske, a lot of times, I usually agree with his stance. It's just like we both want the same thing, but how we get there is different.
And see, I watch Kalinske to get the opposite point of view. That's the only reason I haven't unsubbed from Kyle is because
I'll continue with the question, but our buddy that you've met multiple times, the very conservative gentleman, he and I both agree that we need widespread police reform. He's all on board for it. He thinks they overstep their boundaries, they kill too many people, yada, yada, yada. But he's not on board with the BLM train. He doesn't think the system's inherently racist. Well, guess what? I would consider him an ally, because we both want the same thing in the end. So I was like, I don't care that you don't think that the system's racist. I will give you evidence. I will try to convince him that the system's racist. But if he never gets on board, he would still be out there.
As long as you're for defunding the police, I don't care about how you came to that conclusion.
wanting more training, wanting them to know the law more, wanting them to be more equal when it comes to their punishment. And so I think a lot of it is, a lot of people say, oh, we agree on the same thing, but because you don't agree how I agree, we have a problem. It's just like, if you've ever had roommates, right, and you clean the house, or you do the dishes, or you do the laundry, or you cook dinner, right? They always bitch about how you're doing it. And it's like, is it getting done? Like, the goal is to get the dishes. The goal is to get the dishes done. Just because I'm scrubbing counterclockwise instead of clockwise, it shouldn't matter as long as we're getting the same. I think the polarization that is happening on the left is one of the reasons we keep losing fights. I don't care if somebody comes out and says, like, on our side, we think, do you want to go Democratic Reformation or do you want to go third party? That's important, because if you focus all on Reformation, then you can't go the third party route, right? But we all want the same thing. We all want Medicare for all. We all want to, forgive student debt. We all want to end the wars. And so it's okay to have disagreements, as long as you don't hate the other person. You're not being inflammatory. You're not dividing to the point where you can't reconcile. So I do watch David Pakman, although I haven't been watching a lot of his content, mainly because it's just boring. There's nothing of substance.
Oh, he sucks.
And
he sucks so bad.
The Humanist Report, I watched the Humanist Report because he talks a lot more about, like, lefties and races in areas that I wasn't aware of, but it's also, a lot of his is, like, he'll just demonize anti-mandate people just nonstop. Yep. And it's like, dude, I'm not pro-mandate. I think you should get the vaccine if you can get the vaccine, but I'm not pro-mandate because I'm totally for body autonomy. And so then I watch Kyle Kalinske, and then I watch PragerU. I watch Charlie Kirk, which is, it's the further right you get, the dumber it is.
Oh, it's
and
bad.
So, like, Charlie Kirk is so stupid.
Dave Rubin's worse.
Yeah, Dave
Rubin's the dumbest dude on the planet.
I loved the Change My Mind thing because it's, you go out and...
Well, Change My Mind, that's Louder with Crowder. That's Steven Crowder.
Yeah. But he's getting dumber too.
Oh, he's bad.
And it's like, what they've realized is they're going to keep their audience no matter how much work they put forward, so they just keep putting in less and less work.
Yeah, dude.
So, like, and I've been watching a lot of debates and that kind of thing. But as far as, like, lefty channels go, my main go-to, like, if I want news, like, I want new content, are Kyle Kalinske, Fred Hampton leftists, and then I listen to Unapologetic, and then basically I'll go through my news feed, like actual news. And the Gray Zone is great. Like, I love...
They're the best journalists I've seen right now, and they're also super entertaining.
Yeah, I love the Gray Zone because they have... So, I was actually given information about the Gray Zone by an Australian guy. I got in a fight with him on Twitter. And so, it was about China. And I was talking about the Muslim camps in China, and he was like, well, that's propaganda. And I was like, is it though? Like, I've seen, like, they actually have those. And we got back and forth, and he sent me to the Gray Zone. Well, I didn't know that a lot of the people in those concentration camps were actually radicalized through funds given to extremist Muslims by America.
Right.
And so we want to destabilize China, and so what we're doing is they're basically we're giving money to ISIS rebels in Syria and other places, and they're getting the Uyghur Muslims from China. They're getting radicalized. They're coming back, and I was like, and then I did a whole bunch of research because I wanted to know who the Gray Zone was from, and so it's super reputable. The journalists that started it have been doing journalism for years. A lot of really good. Like detective journalism, exposing corruption, that kind of thing. And so I was reading, I was like, yeah, it totally, like, I don't agree with re-education camps. That's about as draconian as it gets. But I understand that if America is trying to get people super radicalized,
it's a CIA op,
and attack your country, you want something to fix it, And so I don't agree with the methods entirely, but it kind of helped me understand that our view of China is super far
it's
pro-American.
propagandized.
It is. And so, and I like to think that I'm not propagandized a lot, and the Gray Zone really helped me realize, like, oh no, I'm still susceptible.
Everybody is. In America, and, to some extent.
So yeah, commentary-wise, it's always good to, watch videos that reinforce you and give you a little bit of hope, because you're just like, okay, now I can calm down a little bit. But I think mostly you want, if you're like me or like you need to know the other side so you know how to argue against it. I mean, that's why I've read religious texts, because I'm a very
you want
big
to be able to quote it
atheist,
when you need it.
And so I can't go and fight religion if I don't understand the religion. I can't fight against right-wing or centrist talking points if I don't understand right-wing or centrist talking points. So I might be different in that aspect. But yeah, I watch a lot of right-wing stuff. And a lot of it's just hilariously stupid.
Yeah, well, it gives you good content, good material, if you will.
I skip the ads, though. I watch the ads on channels that I like. So, if I'm watching you, I watch the ads. I'm watching Fred Hampton Leftist, I'll let the ads play. If I'm watching Unapologetic or whatever, I was like, hey, man, I want to give him a little bit of money. But if
I think it's just how much you actually sell. I don't know. I've never actually been paid by YouTube. They still haven't paid me yet. Even though they owe me hundreds of dollars. I don't know what they're doing. They haven't paid me 1 cent. Yeah. A couple other things I wanted to ask you about, something we were talking about before the show. What do you think Bernie Sanders should do in 2024, and what do you think he will do?
So, if he lives that long.
Right, oh God.
Bernie says, so I watched your video, and I really don't disagree on any points. I don't think he should run for president again, for several reasons. One, last time, I know a lot of people didn't vote for him because he was old. He's going to be even older.
Yeah.
Also, if he was president, I don't think he'd have the backbone to really fight for progressive ideologies.
And if he won this time, it's likely that he'll still have a Republican Congress, so he might not be able to do anything anyway.
And so I would be very happy to see him run third party, so third party can get that federal funding, because the two-party dichotomy in the United States is one of the reasons we're so polarized. It's one of the reasons so many people are against one another. And what's crazy is most people know that, but they still pick a team.
Right.
And I think it's because it's out of necessity. You pick a team because you have to. And I think that's silly. And so I think if he ran third party and really pushed, and he just wasn't afraid, where he was like, I already have 3 houses. I already got money from book deals. I'm pushing 135 years old. There's no real reason that I should be worried about my career, because I'm set.
And he said he was worried about getting the Nader treatment.
Yeah.
But if he's 85 years old, it's like, dude, I'll put up with it. Your legacy, in my opinion, would be very much redeemed by that play.
Right.
Rather than if he decided to run for the Democratic Party, or even worse, just don't run and kowtow to either Biden or Harris or Buttigieg running for the Democratic Party, everybody on the left is going to remember you as a cuck. Forever. So your legacy's on the line. Do you really care about this movement or this revolution or not?
Right, and not just let your ego go.
Yeah.
Fuck the legacy, fuck what you want as a person, and think about the hundreds of people dying a day because they have to ration their medicine, or the thousands of people dying a day from COVID, or the people that we bomb needlessly in other countries. You really think that your life, your political career, is more important than the entire lives of citizens, or not even just people around the globe? That's why you have to go out there and you have to decide what's more important, my comfort or the lives of others. And if you're picking your comfort, you're just as big of a piece of shit as Manchin. or Sinema or Trump or Biden. You
Exactly.
know, and so like, yes, I want him to redeem himself, and he's gotten arrested for protesting. Like, when did that fight die in him?
Right.
Because he gets out and he says things and he has this rhetoric, and I totally agree with it. I agree with everything he says, but he knows that his words and his fighting is not going to lose him anything. And if you're not going to lose something, it's not a real fight. It's
Right.
theater. And so, yeah, I would love to see him run third party, but I also, we talked about this before, that you didn't know about this, the mayoral race in Buffalo. And so, I don't know the names. I'm terrible with names, but please look it up. There was a Dem primary, and the incumbent lost to
that's Byron Brown. Yep.
a more progressive Dem.
India Walton. Yep.
India Walton, that's right. So, then what happened is, there was the mayoral race. He had an independent write-in campaign, and he won the mayoral seat. So, she wins the primary, and then like, I don't even remember, we talked, and you said probably never, and I've never heard of it, where somebody won not being party affiliated and running a write-in campaign. And so then I was like, this is why Trumpists think that there's, that he won the election.
Fraud, yeah.
That's why people think fraud happens all the time, because I fail to believe that somebody who beat the incumbent in a primary and ran as mayor with a party ticket
Lost to
a write-in. I just don't see it happening. And
Seems impossible.
And so then you look at like all the times Bernie got screwed with the Democratic primary. It's like, yes, I wholeheartedly believe that election was fraudulent. Now, it's way easier to mess with one mayoral race than it is to mess with an entire presidential race, and I don't want to be conspiratorial, but I'm getting to the point now where I don't think election politics is going to get us anything.
Exactly.
I think we have to push to get money out of politics. We have to make it to where if you run, you can't make money. Because that is literally ruining everything. That's why we can't get climate change. That's why we can't end the wars. That's why we can't get bridges and roads fixed. That's why we can't get, free healthcare. That's why we can't get free college. That's why we can't have our student loan debts removed. That's why we can't have a lot of things. Because these companies know they can illegally bribe politicians. And I said before, now I know you and a lot of people, they don't talk about the Republicans because the Republicans are not in power. But they will be.
Yeah.
They're going to be soon.
Yep.
And I know that when Trump wins election, he's going to do everything possible to hold on to that power. And we talked before, I wouldn't be surprised if he tries to add an amendment to where it gets rid of term limits for
that
presidents.
Worries me.
I wouldn't be surprised if they pack the Supreme Court so they can just pick even more, justices.
We know they're going to do that.
I also wouldn't be surprised if they try to get rid of it. Now, you say he won't get rid of the filibuster because the Dems really never filibuster, and that's a totally valid point, but I wouldn't be surprised. They're going to do everything they can to solidify power. And then on top of that, you have gerrymandering going on, you have voter suppression going on, you have our right to protest being removed in a lot of right-wing states where you can't walk on the road, where you going on a union strike gets you arrested. And so I worry that if we don't fix this within the next 5 to 10 years, it will be way too late. Because I think once the Republicans have a hold on things, they're not going to let it go. Now, when I say Republicans, okay, because I don't really care too much about party affiliation, I mean the absolutely propagandized, like, Ayn Rand, Thomas Sowell loving, people that just say, hey, if you can have slavery and it's good for business, let's do it.
Yeah.
And so I think they're going to do everything they can to solidify their power and make this country as propagandized, nationalized, and divided as possible to where people like you, me, and anyone else on the left is just completely blackballed, like they were in the 1940s or 1950s, or when the Cold War was going on. Like, oh, you're a communist? Now you can't get a job.
Yep.
You can't vote. Like, it's going to be bad. And I don't want to fearmonger. I'm totally against fearmongering. But if you look at the bills that they have passed, the bills that they want to pass, and the rhetoric, that's the road that it's going down. And so if the Democrats, which I also hate, don't get their shit together and do something for the American people, that's the future that we're looking at.
Okay, and so your prediction is they'll lose the midterms and likely the presidency?
That's not a prediction, man. That's a guarantee.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, so then let's, and I'm going to reframe what you just said in a way. I believe in accelerationist theory, in that it's almost a good thing that the Republicans are going to wipe out the Democrats, because we know that it's going to get really, really draconianly bad. like dystopian future Mad Max style bad over the next 8 years minimum, right? So if that happens, is there anything else that could be more useful in motivating people to hit the streets for real? So the question becomes, do you prefer us where Biden wins and like we just keep coasting towards fascism, or do you prefer we just take the dive, let it get really fucking bad, but then you have this, slim possibility that we actually have a revolution in this country because the Republicans let basically everything catch on fire and turn into one big dumpster fire transnationally?
There's two things that will really determine that, and that is the effective propaganda by the Republicans.
Yeah.
And the other one is time. So if you have the Trumpians win, right, which they will, so you have the Trumpians win because people realize the Dems are just completely pointless and they don't do anything for anybody and they don't have a higher voter turnout, and then you have Trump win in 2024, you're already going to have the Dems get wiped out in the midterms. That's just not a question. That's an inevitability.
Yeah.
So you have that happen. Now, the longer the Republicans own power, the more likely we are to be unable to fight back. For a couple reasons. One, the longer we take to effectively fix climate change, the worse the planet is going to get. When the planet gets worse and prices are higher for food, water is more scarce, you have more wildfires, what happens is people go into survival mode. They don't have the ability to go protest.
To revolt.
Mm-hmm. And so the more the Republicans and the corporate Dems allow the planet to die and allow humans like the Americans to be starved of things that they need and things that they want, and more we're pushed into survival mode, the less likely we are to be able to stand up until it's just complete desperation. And by then, I think the propaganda will be too much that you're going to have too many people on the side of the oppressors to really affect any change. And so if you look at, I hate comparing anything to Nazi Germany because Nazi Germany is just Nazi Germany, but if you look at how they used propaganda, how they got into people's heads, how they villainized anybody, and made it to where you didn't have to think about how you were being used, that is something that to this day is still utilized a lot. Fear-mongering is exceptionally effective. And so I think we have a very short period of time where we can effectively reverse that. And so I would have been happier if Trump won re-election as opposed to Biden. Because then somebody could have come out. Biden would have been too far gone to run.
Yeah.
And I think he is now, but you can pump him full of medication and get him out there. I would have preferred Trump won, and then the bad times happened, and then you have somebody coming out that could effectively change things.
Right.
With this kind of space in between, what you have is the Trumpians moved the country to the right, propagandized a lot of people, polarized a lot of people. Then you have Biden coming out, it's just like a spacer.
Yep.
Nothing effectively changes. Everything stays the same. So you're not moving the dial back to the left. You're keeping it right where it is. And then Trump wins again, and it moves to the right. And so literally I think the worst thing that happened to America was Biden winning.
Yeah, I agree.
I think it would have been better if Trump won. Not that I think things would be better now. I think things would have gotten way worse.
But we'd be that much closer to a revolution.
Right, that's right. And I think that because of Biden, Manchin, their love of coal, their love of, just big business, I don't think we're going to be able to reverse climate change. I think we're going to see a lot more wildfires in a lot of places. We're going to have a lot more issues when it comes to getting food, getting water. And that's also worrisome because a lot of people in the government have stock in companies that sell water.
Nestle, yeah.
And so, of course, it's not in their benefit
and
to actually
CEO
save the planet.
Straight up came out and said that he doesn't think that water is a human right. Clean water is a human right.
No, yeah, and I saw that.
He's the CEO of Nestle.
I saw that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's telling you exactly what kind of villain he is. He's a monster.
So yeah, it's very worrisome, and it's not so much worrisome because I want the Dems to have power just so the Dems have power. It's because we've come to the point in our existence that we are in danger of becoming... I don't think we'll ever be extinct, because humans adapt very well. But a lot of people are going to die.
Yeah.
A lot of people are going to die, and there's going to be a lot of wars, and that is going to be because we decided not to act. I mean, if you look at the history of the... I can't remember the name of the town where they had to abandon it because there was a coal mine fire. And so there was a coal mine fire, and it ended up catching all the other mines on fire, and so the whole town is just this slow, smoldering blaze. And so everyone had to leave. You can still go visit it, and it's like all the roads. It looks like Silent Hill. Like,
yeah,
all
right.
the roads are cracked.
What it reminds me
of. Strangely enough, I didn't know this until recently, but one of the reasons that happened was because the fire started, and instead of dealing with it right away, they had so many meetings, just like, what's the budget? How can we do this? What can we do? That by the time they decided to act, it had spread too fast, and no one could stop it. And that's literally exactly what's happening. And so I think eventually what's going to happen is you're just going to have very angry mobs. There's going to be revolts. People are going to die, or... people are just going to stay in their shell and be entertained and put on their goggles and go live in meta with,
we could talk about that all afternoon. I don't want to get into that.
Yeah.
But that brings me, my last point about what you're just saying just now, that's why I believe the most important thing that we can do, especially as YouTubers, but just as people in general, is we have to be able to be professional propaganda destroyers. Yeah. Like, you have to be able to teach other people how to sniff out propaganda, so that when it comes time, when the shit's hitting the fan, if the propaganda apparatus is too strong and the populace is too dumb to see through it, then you're right, we're up shit creek without a paddle. But if you have a very educated populace that is motivated and understands that what the propaganda they're being spoon-fed is, then you have an ending like in V for Vendetta that I watched last night, where John Hurt's on there talking propaganda through all the TVs, and then it scans to all the couches and all the bars, and there's no one there.
Yeah.
Because they're all on the streets. Because they don't believe the mainstream media anymore. They've actually truly had an awakening, and they're truly woke on being able to sniff out propaganda. If I can get that done, if me and my merry band of lefty YouTubers can teach the populace how to be professional propaganda sniffer-outers, then we will actually be able to fight that off.
Yeah.
But you have to educate, especially the young people who are going to be part of this movement and this revolution, to really, really not trust mainstream media, as they should not.
And the hard part, too, is you don't have to... You need a bigger amount than what a lot of places want you to believe. So, like, a lot of times, it's like we live in a democracy, right? We're supposed to live in a democracy. So majority rules. So 51%. The problem is, you're going to have the majority of the population on the couch. You're going to have the majority of the population that doesn't want to go to a protest, that has too much to lose by going to a protest, that is like with you in spirit, but is staying at home. And then you're going to have a small minority that are there, that are fighting, that are totally okay with taking a tear gas canister to the face, which is not a lot of people. But the problem is, and again, to bring up Nazi Germany, which America is not Nazi Germany, but it's just a great way to show how an entire country can be propagandized. The Nazis only had about a 30%.
Yep, that's right.
And so what happens is, if you look at the numbers right now, the people to the extreme right are around a 30%. Even, maybe a little less. We're around 25%. And so what you have is, you have people willing to fight and willing to die. And unfortunately, I hate to bring this up, people to the right, typically, they know how to use guns.
They're the fighters.
They are. And so people to the left, because we have more of a egalitarian, humanistic type view, we want to, go away from violence. And so if you have people to the left and people to the right in the streets, well, you're going to have people to the right that bring guns. Yeah, I mean, if you look at the BLM protests, how many people died? I couldn't tell you. I don't really know. But then you have Kyle Rittenhouse, the trial going on right now. He killed 3 people. Yep. Or he killed one guy. I know he shot some others. And so I'm not going to say, because I only know propagandized terms. I only know what the propagandized left has told me and what the propagandized right has told me. So I'm not going to say how I feel about Kyle Rittenhouse, but I will say that he had training and he used it well. You can say whether he was right or wrong, but he had training, and it was very apparent. And so if you are thinking about having that uprising, you have to be able to get those couch sitters, because you have to increase your numbers. And if everything gets bad enough, then either A, no one's going to have the strength because they can't leave their homes. They can't go out. They can't join protests. You're going to have people black-bagged before they can even get to the streets. But if you can... Or things are going to get so bad that they have nothing left to lose. But the problem is there's always going to be a very large section of the population that is willing to die for their beliefs, that is devout, that they know what they believe is right. And right now, that is the side of the Trumpians. And unfortunately, there's some times where you just can't reach.
Yeah,
no matter what you do.
The reason that Hitler took power is because they had like 31%. Their opponents had less than 31%, and the indifferent people was 40%. Yeah. So the point that they tried to do on purpose is that you want to make sure that everybody doesn't necessarily vote for you because you're doing good things, but you demonize the opposition enough so that they don't vote for them, or demonize them enough so that at least they stay home. So they can win with 31%. So that's how they did it. And that's to another point here. That's what I want PFC to be, and that's what I hope that PFC will grow to be, is to make activism and protest fun and creative and different, and turn it into guerrilla politics. Right. Meaning, it's not a protest, it's a party where we're all hanging out protesting, and we're all playing some fun games like the bone tomahawking Elon Musk game, or the throwing darts at Anthony Fauci's face game. If we can get people to treat this more like a celebration of defiance, then a lot of people, they'll get off the couch because they want to go hang out at the protest party.
Right, and
so that's what I want PFC to be, and I'm trying to reframe it.
The sooner it starts, the easier it'll be. Yeah. The longer you wait, like if you were to start protesting now and you just continually protest, it will just be a thing. People are like, this is how it is. And if you stay peaceful too, because the whole reason BLM was discounted and that military police budgets got bloated was because bad shit happened. Now, typically that bad shit was by actors like, crazy white nationalist actors.
Plants.
Yeah. But if you just wait for things to get bad and then you decide to act, you're doing yourself a disservice because the fight's harder. Yeah. And so getting out there, spreading the word, coming out against propaganda, and now, like I said, I don't mean to fearmonger. I might be too nihilistic when it comes to politics because I've just been in politics. But all I know is if the majority of the American population wanted the $3.5 trillion Build Back Better plan, they were on board with almost everything on it, including Republicans, and it didn't pass, then the evidence is clear that we do not live in a representative republic. We are not being represented whatsoever. And if we're not being represented, then that means the government does not have our consent. It's not carrying out the will of the people. And once the government has decided not to do that, we're in a bad spot. Because we have to do what they tell us because we don't have power to fight back. They don't have to do what we tell them because we don't have any power. And so we have to show them that we have power. And the only thing we have is our wallets and our voices. And if we keep refusing to use those, then they're just going to keep stepping on us.
Yep. People should not fear their government. Governments should fear their people.
Oh, yeah. That's why I love seeing Cinema and Mansion, destroyed by protesters.
Oh, I love it. And I've been calling for that on my show.
Oh, yeah.
Constantly.
More of it.
I want more. That was beautiful. When he gets on his yacht, Joe Manchin, whether this bill passes or not, he should have constant people on jet skis just surrounding him, turning up Twisted Sisters, we're not going to take it, and just make his life miserable. Don't allow him to sleep. Don't let Kirsten Sinema go back to the mall. Don't let her go cycling without fucking with her. She doesn't get to go outside without being fucked with anymore.
I was so mad. I was like, yeah, let's be quiet so she can get married. No, fuck her.
Exactly.
You're having Kirsten
She wasn't
Sinema.
getting married. It was a friend of hers.
Yeah,
but
no,
yeah, you're
fuck
right.
her friend. You're having her officiate your wedding. You're all fucking... No. If you're going to have Kristen Sinema officiate your wedding, that means you believe what she's doing. So, you can go fuck yourself. I'm going to ruin your wedding.
Why invite her to your wedding anyway?
And Joe Manchin has to get off his super yacht. He has to.
Yep.
Because he's not living on it. So, all you got to do is go on there. Dude, I don't care if you, Noah Hunter. It's in fucking Virginia. Just cover the fucking boat in fucking, deer guts.
Blood. Yeah.
Just fucking destroy it. I wonder how many bribes they had to take to buy this fucking thing. Well, I'm going to ruin it. I'm going to ruin the fuck out of it. Because we need to stop pretending if we do stuff and we're just as bad as them. No, because you're not killing anybody.
Yeah.
They are actively allowing people to die.
Yes.
And so they need to be treated accordingly. And so, yes, follow her into bathrooms, disrupt her classes, ruin their cars, like, desecrate their boats. I don't care. Just never let up. And the next time somebody comes out, and that was a pretend cry. I have 3 kids. I've seen a pretend cry. Can you stop protesting for an hour so she can get married? I'm like, go fuck yourself.
Exactly.
I know a fake cry when I see one.
Get back in there, Karen.
Like, oh, are you padding those tears with your stacks of hundreds? Like, get the fuck out. No.
She has a watch on in that video that looks like it's worth more than most of our cars.
Stop being nice.
Yeah,
Because
exactly.
you don't protest to be nice. And if there's part of you, that inside voice that is telling you to be nice, here's what I would say. Be nice and be kind to those that are below you, okay? But if someone is causing death and destruction and pain, they do not deserve your kindness at all. So stop going like these half measures, okay? It is literally do this or people die. And if you're, I would totally love to go protest, but I can't drive all the way to Virginia, I don't. But if she ever comes to Illinois, I'm gonna be.
We're gonna take care of it.
I'm gonna be all fucking.
We got some plans.
I will
Trust me.
show up fucking naked.
That's not the plan.
I will run in like straight past her bodyguards, and I will teabag the fuck out of Joe Manchin.
Flying scissor kick to the face.
Right. I'll be arrested. I'll be tased in the nutsack. I don't give a damn.
You'll go viral. You'll go viral.
Oh yeah.
You'll be a minor celebrity.
I'm gonna
if you do
ruin
that.
Joe Manchin's life.
And see, that's what I'm saying, man. Political Fight Club, if you protest, I want it to be interesting and for people to want to do it, like the Ice Bucket Challenge. I want it to be something that's like a fad. Like, we can make activism and protesting a fad, but also more targeted and more creative protest than just standing with a sign. Like, I'm not saying that drum circle at the park isn't useful, but I'd much rather you do some stuff like directly to these people, because that's the only way you're really going to wield any power.
Nothing violent.
Of course.
Nothing that hurts anybody.
Not yet. I haven't advocated for any violence yet.
Yeah. I don't want anybody that watches this show to get arrested. I don't want anybody's life taken, okay? But if you have the chance to mushroom stamp a senator that isn't doing what they... Yeah, I mean, technically, is that assault? By law, yes.
Can you be killed with a scrotum? I don't know.
No one's getting hurt, okay?
Yeah.
Just,
if you could be killed by a scrotum, Anna Kasparian would be dead already.
Yeah, I think Cenk Uygur, too.
Yeah, probably. Cow scrotum. He's smothered by cow scrotum.
Yep. And so, I'm all down for, like, when I heard the January 6th, before I knew people were trying to kill senators, back when they were just destroying property, I was all about it. I was like, yeah.
Chris Hedges would agree with you.
I don't agree with why they were protesting, but, like, if I'm for the BLM protests and they were burning courthouses down, then I would be, remiss to say that, I'm against... destroying a podium at, in the congressional building,
Right.
And so, I was, like, all about it, and they're like, we found pipe bombs. I was like, oh, that's too far.
Yeah.
I guess that's too much. But I'm all about property damage, like, torch a super yacht.
Yeah, exactly.
Dude, I don't give a fuck.
Exactly, and that's what I'm for, too. It's not violence, and, you're right, guys. I don't want you guys to get hurt, but tree stumping Joe Manchin and fucking with Kyrsten Sinema, and, like you said, the January 6th riot, of course, I don't want anybody to get hurt, and it breaks my heart that people were hurt. Yeah. But at the same time, Chris Hedges agrees with you. He goes, as soon as the $15 minimum wage got dropped from that first bill by the parliamentarian, which Joe Biden and the squad enabled,
yes,
the first thing we should have done is run on the Capitol. That's what he says, and I agree. We should have run on the Capitol immediately. That's what the French do. They'll go out and they'll make it a week-long party just if you fuck with them just a little bit. Oh, and that's the way I wish our culture was. I wish that as soon as like we were educated and motivated enough that at the drop of a hat, that if one senator does one thing wrong that we don't like, we go fucking surround his house and have a good time figuring out ways to fuck with them. That's what I want. I want us to turn activism and protest into a fad that we never stop, and then it just becomes culture after that. That's what I want. Right. That's political
I'm also
fight.
like wondering like how many if you're an aide, like you can get close, and it's not just like Sinema and Manchin. They should all be protested because they're not fighting hard enough.
All of them, yeah. Oh, 100%.
Like, protest the squad, protest AOC, protest Ro Khanna, just any senator at all. Like, hell, I'm half tempted to go, fight mine because she signed off on that bill, too.
Was it Duckworth?
I call her all the time.
Yeah.
I call her
She
and
sucks.
I call her and I bitch about it all the time, and then I always get these letters afterwards like, "Thank you." I was like, "You didn't listen to my voicemail."
No, you didn't.
Because you would not. This letter would not be so nice if you listened to what I said. And so it's just like, I think that we need a massive amount of just nonstop protests, just fucking with their lives.
Yep.
Like, oh, you want to go rent a movie from Redbox? How about you go fuck yourself?
Yeah.
You know, like, you can't live your life like nothing happened when you're leading to the suffering of others.
And we will get them to have nervous breakdowns if we do. Eventually, because here's the thing. What they think they'll do is, I think Cinema thinks this, but this is wrong. She thinks that she can just be like, oh, well, I'm not going to be a senator anymore. My life's going to go back to normal. No, bitch. If you don't change some things before you leave office, the whole rest of your fucking life, we're going to do this.
Oh, yeah.
We're not going to forget that you just tanked a bill or 2 or 3 on your own and screwed over millions of Americans. You're never getting away. I don't care if you become a billionaire CEO or friend of CEO on the Hunger Games circuit. I don't care what you become. You will forever be branded with the scarlet A for asshole, and we're never leaving you alone.
How
Ever.
many surprise nutsacks to the face when you're out in public does it take to ruin your life with PTSD forever?
You ever seen
Like-
those nutsacks that hang from the back of like people's tailgates? Get a couple of those and swing them like David and Goliath slings and just throw them at her as she's going everywhere. So it's just nutsacks flying at her constantly.
Real sweaty Arizona nutsacks in the global warming heat, smacking her in the face. And I bet she could probably get to 7 before she just has a complete breakdown, where she's just running around just like this. Like,
scrotums everywhere.
They're everywhere.
Nutsacks are hitting me from everywhere.
And, you know, I'll be honest with you, I'm fine with people doing that to Republican senators too.
Yeah, all of them.
Like, not just Dems. Like, if you live in a Republican state,
Go get Ted Cruz.
and you're a conservative or a libertarian, and they're like not passing bills that are pro-union or pro-worker or anything else, yeah, go fuck with them, because they need to understand that their power comes from us allowing them to have power. And we've just decided to sit back and say, well, there's nothing we can do. And that's because of the propaganda. And we need to stop.
Do you remember, it was in one of the Jackass movies, they made the dildo gun, the dildo cannon.
Yeah, that
Get
broke
a dildo
someone's
cannon
jaw.
and just aim it at Ted Cruz as he's walking out to his Benz.
No, I
just,
don't want-
all right.
I don't want him to enjoy
And then,
it.
he's like, oh,
Yep.
oh,
No,
shit.
he would swallow the whole thing.
Fired at Anna Kasparian. We're just losing dildos
He's
left and right.
He's like, I've, guzzled Trump's dick for 4 years. This ain't nothing to me.
But that's what I'm saying. We need to get creative, guys. There's a way we can have fun and protest, and then we can change the culture around fucking with politicians in this country, and then the politicians won't fuck with us anymore because they'll be afraid of the political fight club swarm getting them.
Right. There was, in the Jackass movie, or online, I'm not really sure because I'm ancient, but they had these guns and they did basically Russian roulette shot with fermented horse semen. That means that there is somewhere where you can obtain fermented horse semen. Now, I don't know if you know this, and I don't know it for sure, but I'm assuming fermented horse semen is kind of gross. But, I mean, there's fermented horse semen obviously on the market somewhere, and they're super soakers. And I'm just saying you can combine those two. And
Yeah, or do it like the last scene in Carrie with the pig's blood, except for do it with horse semen. Just,
there you go.
the old pail above the door trick, and then as soon as Ted Cruz is going on his back porch to sunbathe, there you go. You got a bunch of lotion there. Some suntan lotion for you there, Teddy.
There you go.
But anyway, I'm 100% for that. Is there anything else you wanted to talk about today? I think we've hit basically...
Not really, man. I feel kind of bad for fear-mongering as much, but I am very concerned as to the direction that the country's going and how many people are being polarized, allowing themselves to be polarized when they know better. They know it's propaganda, and they're allowing it to happen. Like, don't hate Republicans, don't hate Democrats, see what they stand for, and if they are different than you, then you try to convince them. And you fight for what you believe in, alright? But don't hate them because they have different views, right? They came to their views, they think they're right. That doesn't make them terrible people. It might make them, ignorant. It might make them, a little selfish. But I think the only way that we're going to get through all this is coming together. Yep. And if we don't do that, then we're just going to keep getting stepped on. And so, I think we should probably also start selling horse semen infused super soakers with political fight club stickers.
Yeah, that would be cool.
I think that'd be good.
That'd be very cool. The merchandising. To your point, man, mainstream media, and I tweeted this yesterday, mainstream media, when you look at the rhetoric coming from them right now, doesn't matter what side of the aisle, it's 100% about dividing us.
Yeah.
And the role of indie media needs to be the opposite. Needs to be trying to bring us together from both sides of the aisle. That's why you don't hear me label myself too much, because even though I'm a Marxist, I actually find myself having better conversations a lot of times with Republicans because they're ignorant, but a lot of times they're upfront with their bullshit ideas, and they are at least honest with you about their bullshit ideas. I have a hard time with Democrats because a lot of times they don't say what they mean, so I have to decode them. But my point is, labels are stupid. Let's fight the class war. If you have class solidarity with people across both sides of the aisle, you'll find that you agree on most things.
Oh, yeah.
So the point of indie media should be to bring people together, and it should be to combat exactly what mainstream media is doing, which is propaganda designed to divide us.
Yeah, because if we're divided, we can't fight back. And I'm fine with having super affluent, wealthy people. I'm fine with people having super yachts, as long as there's no one homeless, there's no one hungry, and the planet's not dying.
Yeah, and I'm not against wealth either.
If there was someone out here being a billionaire, but homeless people had homes, kids weren't going hungry, and the fucking world wasn't on fire, good for you, okay? But if your money can solve a lot of problems and you're just hoarding it to go to space in your fucking dick rocket, you can go fuck yourself.
Yep, I'm actually for a cap on wealth nowadays, but I'm not against wealth. But I talked about this about Hassan Piker the other day. It's like, when he bought that $4 million house, it's like, that's stupid because you're a socialist, so what kind of socialist wants a $4 million house? But I'm not against people that, are fighting for some socialist policies becoming wealthy. And in fact, Marxism does not say that we can't do that. America is the wealthiest nation in the history of mankind. Everybody could be millionaires if we wanted to. Nick Cruz says that on the Fred Hampton Leftists all the time. He's correct. So I'm not against people having millions of dollars. I am against hyperwealth from exploitation. And of course, I'm for up to maybe $10 million of net worth. Beyond that, it's like, what the fuck are you going to do?
Right.
What kind of self-proclaimed socialist wants to become that wealthy?
Right. I don't want to buy a cell phone knowing that my cell phone is built on the back of exploitative, basically slavery in an African country in a lithium mine.
Right.
Just so some asshole can pat his bottom line. If you didn't pay your CEO as much, then you could afford to pay the people in the mine more money. But you've decided that your CEO is worth $500 million bonus a year, on top of their salary, that you could have given to these miners. And so, yes, I am fine with wealthy people as long as that's not built on pain.
Yep.
But unfortunately, a lot of it is. So fuck your yachts.
Yep. And speaking of fucking over miners, Matt Gaetz. Anyway, I'm not gonna. We're gonna end it right there, guys.
Shouldn't laugh at that.
Yeah. Well, we don't know for sure, but it looks pretty likely.
Yeah. If
Pretty
you've seen a
goddamn
pedophile,
likely.
you've seen them all. If that man wasn't a Republican, he'd be working in the church.
Yeah, you're right. He would. Anyway, welcome to Political Fight Club, guys. I hope you enjoyed that. We will do more episodes like this in the future. I'm looking to get StreamYard pretty soon so we can do some actual interviews on my show. I'm scraping together the cash to do that. And I've got a big surprise for you guys. I haven't been able to release it yet, but there's a pretty cool, let's just say, surprise for you guys baking right now. Maybe in the next week I'll be able to release that for you.
It's not an OnlyFans. It might be an OnlyFans.
It's not an OnlyFans. Anyway, keep fighting the good fight out there, guys. We love you. We'll talk to you later.